Hi guys, Tracy here with my 2020 Project Life album. I have it in this Becky Higgins album that actually has some fading here on the edge, but a friend of mine was downsizing and gave it to me for free, so I'm not going to complain about a free vessel to hold my Project Life cards in. So I did finish up this album yesterday, and so I just wanted to do a flip through because it's been a while since I've done an album flip through. It's, as you can see, when I let go of it, it does kind of, it's a little thick, but I think it will, it'll store parallel on my album when there are other albums on either side of it. It doesn't take too much pressure to keep it like this. So I'm pretty pleased that I was able to fit the whole year into this album. Of course, it is 2020, so we didn't do a whole lot in the year, but I did do a fair amount of Project Life scrapping and documenting. So what I thought I would do is emphasize some of the ways that I documented my everyday life during 2020, including how I used some ephemera and some little tips and tricks for how I kind of documented my time. So I did the cover page last, which is what I often do with my Project Life. And what I did was I just collected all through the month anything black and yellow and white. And I started off, the kind of the jumping off point or the inspiration for this cover page was in, I think it was sometime in January of 2020, or maybe even in December of 2019. I think the same kit, it was either a Kelly Perky kit or a Studio Calico kit. It came with this card and this card and this card, and I think this card as well. These other cards I added from my own stash. I'm pretty sure, I can't quite remember. And these I added from my stash, and this is from Ellie's Studio. And this is from Allie Edwards, and this is one of those circles from the Studio Calico kits that they were doing that year. I think all of 2020 was these circles, or maybe it was 2019, I can't quite remember. Anyhow, this was a pretty easy page to document because it didn't really have any photos. I just kind of, normally I don't put much journaling at all on my cover pages, other than maybe a couple of goals, maybe a single 4x6 photo. But I did want to just kind of document that this was an unusual year, and there was no way that I could know it when I was setting out to start this album. And so I just kind of had a few thoughts about that I shared there. So one thing that I just wanted to talk about my process is that most of my pages are not very coordinated, and they don't really have a look per se. This page is actually an exception to that. So this page kind of doesn't really look like mine. I do sometimes just kind of try out different things, and I think I was just using all supplies that I had. Maybe they came in a kit. I can't quite remember. There's probably a process video for it. But this page is very kind of all pastel or kind of muted tones. But if I turn the page, really, this is what my Project Life almost always looks like. It has looked like this since 2012 when I started doing Project Life. And I really love this kind of mishmash of colors and photos and journaling and images, and I just really love that this is what Project Life is all about for me. If I want to do a more coordinated page that has a real look to it, I typically would do a 12 by 12 scrapbook page or something like that. So here, for example, I used the little bag that they give you at Lush, and so it has the Lush branding on it there, and then I just put the picture of the soap from Lush. And really, you don't have to have a very eventful or exciting life in order to document Project Life. What I actually really love about Project Life is going back and seeing the tiny little details, like, oh, I remember when I used to wear that t-shirt all the time, or oh yeah, I remember that time that Sophie was taking pictures in the rec room with her balloons. And I mean, that happened to be a birthday party, but that could be the kind of thing that is just kind of fun to reflect back on and remember. So for example, this photo of my daughter making something, maybe cookies, maybe brownies or something, is kind of the kind of memory that I just love about Project Life, because you can see, first of all, like the kitchen is really messy. The HelloFresh bag is out there. So like when we're looking through this, it'll spark memories, and like our coffee pods are up there, and David's tea is right there. It just kind of like this one photo tells so much about our lifestyle and the way we live our day-to-day life, even though it's kind of just about Liv making cookies, right? And so I have a card here, and this is something that I've been doing this year that I used to do a long, long time ago, but using card making stamps. So this is a Lawn Fawn stamp, and I just kind of colored it and cut it out and used it as an embellishment here on this card, and I really love doing that. And so one of the things that is different about this year's Project Life compared to previous years is I really tried to do a lot more stamping. And so this is a stamp and this is a stamp. I stamped here, this, and this are stamps, stamp here. And so that really kind of makes my project very unique and one of a kind, and it allows me to really tailor it to the stories that I'm trying to tell. I do a lot of layering of labels, and so I keep a huge stash of labels, and if you take a look at my process videos, you'll see that. And I was trying to do a lot more of layering of using multiple stamps together, and here's a good example of that. So this little bit here came from 1, 2, 3 different stamps, plus some letter stickers and a chipboard piece, just to make this little title here. And I had a lot of fun doing that, especially at the beginning of this year. Towards the end, it was more rushed, and I didn't do a whole lot of that. So another thing is that you don't always have to have a photo for your story. So this is an example. I didn't take a picture of my coffee, but I used a little coffee cup wood veneer, and then I also used this little card, and all that I did here was I used a little tiny letter stamp set to put second cup here, just because that's the brand of coffee that I've been getting lately, and so I just kind of wanted to do that. I didn't have a picture of the cup, so I just made this into that. Another tip for if you're looking for ways to fill up your pages is to include Facebook memories. So, when Facebook tells you this year, this day so many years ago, it's a fun way to document some things that maybe didn't get in your project life if you're new to the project, or just to kind of have a bit of a blast from the past. I don't keep track of my weeks, like I don't do week by week, so I wouldn't say, like this is week number 4 or anything like that, but I do tend to mark the months as they pass. So here, for example, just indicating that this is still January. So I don't even put these cards to indicate the beginning of a month. It's just kind of a rough way to map out the time as it passes in my pages. So here we are in February now. This was actually a card that I had a lot of fun making. It just has a little bit of journaling here, but this card had all these hearts, and I added the coordinating enamel dots from my stash, and I really love how that looks. It just adds so much to the card. And then here is our office plan that this is actually a little sad to look at, because we had these huge plans in February. We had just signed a lease for this is our office right here, and we had just signed a lease for the space next door, which was going to more than double our space, and we had a new associate coming, and I was so looking forward to knocking out walls, and we gave the plans to the building people, and then the pandemic hit, and we were working from home and lost an associate, and a couple of different things happened. And so we're going to be staying in this space now, unfortunately. But, I'm glad that I was able to document my excitement over that plan, and maybe someday we can pick up, although that space has been rented by somebody else now. So if we want bigger space, I guess we would have to move at this point. So anyhow, that's kind of the kind of thing that I really like to include in my project life. So one thing that you can do is take a look not only at your photos, but also any kind of screen captures or other kinds of documents that you have on the go that you might want to include in your project life, just to kind of reflect back on, even if you're reflecting back in a little bit of a sad way. That's okay. So, I don't think I have too much to say about this page. This is just kind of a basic page. You can check out my process video if you want to see how this one came together. But as you can see, it does sometimes have a bit of a color scheme to it, and that's because I tend to scrapbook with kits, right? And so the kits, if I'm using them in the proper month, they will usually coordinate with each other. So this might look really coordinated, but it wasn't me pulling that off. It was just the cards I had in my hand tended to coordinate. And in the process videos, you'll see me sometimes dig into my stash if I'm looking for just the right card. At this point, I was keeping up with my project life, meaning I was scrapbooking it week by week. So I would have scrapbooked this page the week before, or sorry, the week after. And so that is one of my biggest tips for project life, is to try to stay on top of it, not in a pressured way, but just in terms of it really is a lot faster because the stories are right on the top of your mind and you've got everything just at hand, and you're not kind of piling up a whole bunch of ephemera over months waiting to someday put it in your project life. It just kind of, it either makes the cut or you get rid of it, and it's really a pretty easy way to manage your stuff around project life. But of course, you know, life tends to happen, and as you'll see as I go on in this, I get more and more behind as the year goes on. But ideally, this works really, really well for me. Another thing that I wanted to point out here is that sometimes within my project life, I might have a multi-cell story to tell. So for example, all of these photos and this journaling all go together. And so what I did was I matted the whole thing with a black outline around it so that your mind just kind of takes this in as one unit, even though it's in 3 different pockets. And it makes it more obvious that these things all go together without using arrows. And I do sometimes use arrows, so I'll take a look, I'll keep an eye out for that, and I'll point that out sometimes as well. Another tip that I have is that I don't always use a 4x6 card in my 4x6 pockets. So I use Becky Higgins Design A page protectors, and that includes like the 4 4x6s and then 4 3x4s across the middle. But I almost always don't have enough 4x6 photos or cards to scrap that way, and so I will often put 2 cards in one pocket, and what I sometimes do is I'll just attach them to a Becky Higgins grid card, which I'm running out of because I've used them this way for so long. So just use that and stick a card on each side of it and then stick it into the pocket. But what I've been doing more often lately, just to cut down on the bulkiness of my pages, is just using a piece of washi tape across the back to hold them together. So here's the next page, and as you can see, I do put these acrylic pieces in my project life, even though they are fairly bulky, and I was still able to get the whole month done in one album. So I'm really pleased that I was able to go ahead and occasionally use some pretty bulky things like this Maggie Holmes butterfly, as well as a little bit bulky, and even these cork stars are a little on the bulky side. So I like to go ahead and just bulk it up within reason, and especially when it's for something really beautiful and that I think really adds a lot to my pages. So yeah, so see, so this is the following week, and this picture that I'm scrapbooking right now is of this layout right here. You can see the heart right here. So I was very, very on top of my project life at this point. This actually I scrapbooked at Crop and Create, so I don't think I have a process video for this, but these are some of my favorite letter stickers, and I used to use these all the time on my project life, and I do recommend that if you'd like your project life to have a really consistent feel to it, to get a whole bunch of the same letters in different colors. So for example, all of those Ali Edwards letter stickers, or the Kelly Perky letter stickers, or those Simple Story snap letter stickers that are on little 4x6 cards. Getting those in, those are fairly inexpensive, and you can get them in a whole bunch of different colors. These are sassafras letter stickers, so you can't buy these anymore, but I have a ton of them, and so that's why I use these a lot in my project life. And when I use them really consistently, which I don't in this book, it really gives your book a nice consistent feel from page to page, whereas since I'm not doing that in this book, each page has more of a mishmashy kind of look, which I really love that look anyways. But if you're looking for some consistency, then that's one way to do it, is with letter stickers. And another way to do it is to just get a kit and subscribe to a kit and just use that kit for the entire year, because then most of those kits end up having similar elements, like they might repeat how they do their month card every month, or they might use similar fonts in all of their products. So is there anything interesting here? Okay, so here's my first insert for this year. This is the, so this is what I started scrapbooking when I got home from Crop and Create. And so this was scrapbooked quite a bit after the fact, because I didn't do any scrapbooking after I came back from Crop and Create, because when we came back, it was immediately the pandemic. The pandemic actually kind of started when we were away. So once we got back, that was it. On Monday was the day when everything closed down, and I got back on Sunday. So this is just an insert that just talks about the news, and I use inserts in a couple of different ways. Sometimes I'll use an insert to add something extra that I'm trying to tell, maybe like a bit of a longer story that has more elements to it. And so this would be my page for the week, and then I added this because this was kind of like the news stories about COVID-19. Sometimes the insert has one full story across both sides of it, and sometimes it's more like this one, where there's an extra story here and an extra story here. So this is a story about a medical situation that happened when I was away, and then this is about kind of like the news of COVID-19 really hitting everywhere all at once, and like all of the stories were all about that. And then otherwise, these pages are just kind of documenting what I was doing that week. So this was Crop and Create, and I do use these. I'm going to call them the right things. Hang on, let me get them. I often call them flippity flaps, but that is not what they're called. They are called photo flip pockets, and they're by Snap, and I get them in 4x6 as well as 3x4 sizes. I use 3x4s more often than the 4x6, but it's handy to have them in hand in terms of just like all of the sizes that you use, right? So I don't know if they come in other sizes besides those two, but those are the two sizes of pockets that I use, so I keep them on hand in both sizes. And so as you can see, this is an insert, and it also has a flip the flap interactive element to it. It's really, really good for telling long stories. Like this is a long text thing, and then some journaling about it afterwards. And so I just layered two of those flip pockets on top of each other, and it allows me to tell this fairly long story without having to kind of go on and on with pages and that sort of thing. It's nice because you might not want to see this spread across a whole page, because it would be too repetitive if I put it like this. This way it's all contained in here, and it doesn't kind of interrupt the flow of my pages. So I'm just trying to not talk about necessarily the individual process things that I talked about in my videos, just kind of general things here. So another thing that happens here is I have a sticker that's outside of the pocket. And so some stickers stick really easily. These chipboard pieces stick really, really well. So those are okay to put on the outside. And some other things kind of pop off when you put them on the outside. So you just have to kind of experiment with it. But I do know that chipboard sticks fairly well to page protectors. Then this is a Becky Higgins. This is, it's not called the Design Anything. It's called 8.5 by 11. So you can get, this is like a horizontal 8.5 by 11 instead of this kind, instead of a vertical. And I really love these for adding big amounts of extra journaling. It's a really great way. It's interesting, right? Like, and I like how it kind of looks when you turn the page and you can see that there's more behind it, but you've got this. And I just did that on a piece of Felicity Jane paper with lines on it because I really liked the pretty color on the back. You could color that if you really wanted to, or you could put more journaling or more stories, or just like slip another something in there, maybe put some ephemera or anything like that that might have been going on at that time. I just left it blank though. It gives you, I like to leave a few things blank and have some, you know, like spaces in my layouts, just because my layouts tend to be really, really dense. And so having things like this, I mean, right here is a good example. There's not much space on this page for your eye to really rest. There's a bit of white space here and a bit of negative space here, and that's it. The rest of it is pretty chock full. Oh, there's another one. So another time when it can be helpful to put a embellishment on the outside is if you want to span two pockets. So there's a division here in my pockets, but I wanted this to span onto there. So, and this is another one that's outside. Sometimes I just put them outside because I just decided to decorate it later, but sometimes I'll decide to put it on the outside for design purposes. Another little tip that you might already know is to make sure that you take screen caps of anything relevant or unusual that you might want to document. So got a couple of emergency alerts over the period of time that I'm scrapbooking here, and so I included that. I included this kind of meme type of thing. I also included a screen capture of the movie that we were watching. We just looked up a review on it to decide whether it was relevant for Sophie's class that she was taking. She needed to watch a war movie. And so I just took a screenshot of it to document that we watched that movie. It's a really great way to document movies that you've watched without having to like try to take a picture of the movie screen or something like that. You can also do screen captures of your Zoom meetings and that sort of thing. Although I didn't do that here. I took a picture of the TV, which isn't quite as nice. We were across the room, so it was harder to take a screenshot of that. I printed this up from Twitter. It was the Queen's message to the people of Nova Scotia about the mass shooting that happened. And a couple of different things around the Portapique shooting, and some more screenshots. I take screenshots of my Animal Crossing game just so that I can have that documented, that I've been playing that game and that's kind of part of my creative life these days. And feel free to just take pictures of food. This was, for example, I came into the kitchen and my daughter had left this out for Scott and I to make our own with little notes on how to do it. And so I thought that was kind of cute. Another emergency alert because there was a shooter. It wasn't a shooter, but they thought there was a shooter in our neighborhood. That was just like a couple days after the other shooting. So everybody was a little bit on edge. Gas prices are another fun thing to capture for your project life because, you know, someday when you look back on this, gas prices will probably be very different. Now, this spread is all about a project that we did. So as you can see, all of these photos are fairly repetitive, and I feel as though all of these could have gone into an insert or something. And not kind of taken up so much real estate as far as like your eye taking all of this in. But On the one hand, it's kind of, nice to kind of document it and look through it, but I kind of feel like all of this going to basically one day being spread out across a whole page is a little bit excessive for Project Life. So I might have preferred to do this another way, but at the time I was really just trying to get it in the book. As you can see, there's almost nothing creative done with this besides just like adding labels with some captions and some stickers, and that's about it. Like I didn't do any stamping or any techniques or anything. I used the liner of one of our masks. So we've got a whole package of these little mask inserts that you put inside to add an extra layer of protection. And so I just used my ruler and lined out some journaling lines and did some journaling right on the mask liner. And I think that that's just kind of an example of just using ephemera and trying to like make an effort to get it into your book, even if you're not referring to it. So I never say here, these are the liners that we used in our masks. It's just kind of, I'm just using it as a medium for the documenting. I don't think there's anything to say about this other than here's another insert. So this insert is all about Liv's birthday. And on the one side, we have kind of like the daytime part of it. And then on the other side, this is all when Jen and Adam came over in the evening. So again, you can see how if this was spread across one whole page, then I wouldn't have had room to get all of these other memories in here. And so that's another really great way to use an insert. Here I used one of these. These are tabs that you can get. I think they're office supply tabs, but I got mine from Ali Edwards' website. And I actually don't love them because they don't really lay flat, but I wanted to try them out, so I tried them. Here's another flip the flap. And here's another flip the flap with just some news stories. So sometimes when I have news stories that I'm documenting and I just want kind of more details, I'll do something like this instead of putting two news stories side by side that are basically covering the same thing. And here's an example of using arrows to say that this journaling goes with this card, as opposed to using the black matting around the two cards. And sometimes when I use a flip the flap, I just use the flip the flap like this, right? And other times I'll put something on it that indicates that there's a flap, an interactive element. So right here, this says open me, and then you open it up and you can see Sophie freezing in the little tiny pool. So here is another insert. So this is another kind of themed insert. So this is all of the photos about Liv's graduation photo shoot that we did. It was outdoors back when the restrictions were loosening a little bit, so we were allowed to meet in small numbers. I think 10 was the max, and so the girls could all be together there. And so all of these photos are here, but then another thing that I wanted to do is just have this series, and in order to accommodate the series, I use this die cut from Lawn Fawn that says lift the flap, and it's a stamp and a matching die cut, so that you know to lift the flap and to lift the flap. And then to make this kind of more obvious that this is a series of photos, what I did was I used the lettering to match the dress of the girl. So the constant in this is Liv. So Liv is in all of these photos. And then Mael's dress is green, so I wrote Mael in green. And then Sophia's dress is pink, so I wrote Sophia in pink. Sophie's dress is a dark blue, so I wrote in dark blue. And Amy's dress is dark blue, so I wrote Amy in dark blue. And then Mac, I didn't have a photo of Liv posing with Mac, but I wanted to include Mac because Mac is another one of her very good friends of this bunch. And so I put Mac in pink because her picture is pink. So that was how I did the series. And again, this is a really good reason to have multiple colors of the same font. This was... I'll show you the letters so that you can know what I'm talking about. It's, I think it was from these letters here, which are from, I think they're from Kelly Perky, but there's also similar ones here from Studio Calico, Are these Kelly Perky also? Yeah, a lot of these are Kelly Perky. I just love her letter stickers. I thought they were Allie Edwards, but they're not. They're Kelly Perky. And now I'm just kind of checking to see if there's anything else worth talking about here. So here's another insert, and it has a lift the flap as well. This was a transition back to summer, or back to school. You know, feel free to take picture of the food you're eating and memes and stuff from Facebook and whatever you're doing. You don't even have to have a whole lot of photos. So I have news stories in here, and you know, if it weren't for this little insert of our apple picking, there would only be a couple of personal pictures even on this one. A lot of it is just kind of food and stuff from the internet. Again, if you can't choose between two photos, that's another really good time to use a page flip. What is it called again? Photo flip pockets. I need to put like a post-it note in front of me that tells me the name of that. Photo flip pockets. I couldn't decide because I like this one because you can see Jana better, but I like this one because it shows a bit of the environment of the office, including the cleaning caddy that's behind her. That's kind of relevant to the time. So, you know, if you can't decide, just use a flip the flap and a flippity flap and document it that way. And again, sometimes I use arrows. I keep all my arrows separate so that I can easily grab an arrow when I need it for Project Life, because I do a lot of kind of like indicating this journaling goes with this photo, or this journaling goes with that photo. There are process videos on my channel for all of this, and I will put a link in I'll put a card that tells you, that links you basically through to my entire Project Life process video playlist. Did I say that right? I hope you understood what I meant. So now we're getting into the very quick scrapbooking where I really kind of just threw these pages together. These past couple, as you can see, there's almost no stamping at this point because I'm just trying to get through the documenting part, not being all that creative. And so now that this album is completed, what I do plan to do is focus quite a bit more on my 4x6 or on my 12x12 layouts, because I find that they give me a lot more satisfaction from a creative perspective. So I really do love having Project Life, but I really love creating 12x12. So I'm going to go back to that. In case you're interested and wondering, this is how the 4x6 photo flip pockets work. So the photos go in. How do they go in? Wait a second, I don't remember here. Yeah, so the photos slide in sideways and it opens and closes sideways instead of up and down. So that's worth knowing, because I actually thought that they'd flip up like the other ones do, but they flip sideways, which actually kind of makes it a little bit more obvious that you have something to flip when somebody who's using the album who maybe isn't me and hasn't made it will be more likely to notice it. So there's another flip the flap. And then I ended on a half page, which I don't often do. So I ended on an insert, which was kind of fun. It allowed me to have this section here all have this kind of gray and almost like a purpley tone to it. Her room is not purple, it's gray, but it just looks kind of purple with that lighting. So I thought that these kind of cards would all look good with that. And then I just include at the very back, I always, when I finish up my Project Life, I just put an empty 8.5 by 11 page protector in it, so that if I'm cleaning up something else around the house and I find something, I can just run down and stick it in the pocket of the proper Project Life album. In this case, I already had some stuff to put into these pockets, so just some artwork and a pamphlet from a dance competition and some Christmas cards that are special to me and birthday cards and some more artwork. And I just put it on the page protector like this, and when I sewed it really wonky, so I just covered it up with washi tape so you couldn't see my wonky stitching. And also this kind of keeps it out there so that the bulk is over here instead of right beside the rings, which can create more bulk in your album. So I know that this was a bit of a long walkthrough, but thank you so much for checking out my project life, and thank you for staying with me throughout this time when my scrapbooking has been really kind of hit or miss and all different kinds of approaches and styles. But I kind of feel like I'm ready to kind of jump back into 12 by 12 layouts for the most part, at least for the next little while. So thanks for watching and have a really great scrappy week.